welcome back to the channel. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I do want to go through today. I want to make sure that we give Barrel and Hatchet, they ran a really good rifle course. And so part of running this business is I have to go out and do other training. So I go do a lot of other training. I do a lot of other classes. I'm headed to Huntsville here in about a month to do another one up in Huntsville. I just got back from Barrel and Hatchet down in Florida and did their carbine class. Now, this is their kind of level 1 carbine class. And so for those of you that aren't familiar, a level 1 carbine class and a level 1 pistol class are not equivalent, right? So a level 1 pistol class is kind of like it's one step above driver's ed, right? We're at defensive driving. A level 1 carbine course is on top of that because the assumption is that you generally know how to run a carbine at that point in time, right? You know basic principles of shooting a carbine and how to do some simple close quarter battle stuff. And so that is kind of just so you guys know what the echelon is and what the general expectation of the shooter level is. Now, Barrel and Hatchet ran a really good course. I've got we're going to go through some critiques, but I don't want that to come across as me saying don't go take their class. I think it was a very worthwhile class. I got absolutely my money's worth out of it, and it was certainly good to have some people that were very knowledgeable that could help critique me, right? Watch my forum on things, and say, hey, you're kind of leaning into this, or your arm, is a little bit this way, and hey, Roger, track and get my arm down because I can't see myself shoot, right? So this is one of the things that we go to professional instruction for. So and I'll be honest with you, they have 2 instructors that teach these class. One of them is a JTAC, right? So for those of you that don't know, they're basically call for fire guys, right? Artillery for the Air Force, and they're real specialized. It's a very, it's not special operations, but it's kind of one step below special operations, right? Because they work directly with special operations. A lot of JTACs get kind of hoarded out in the military where you'll get a JTAC like assigned to your unit, especially for real small units. Like I was running cavalry units, we'd get JTACs assigned to us all the time. They'd come over and they'd roll with us and they'd be our call for fire guys and that sort of thing. So, but anyway, so one of them's a JTAC. The other guy is actually straight civilian, never law enforcement, never military. And I'm going to be honest with you, that was my first hesitation on this class, and not because I don't think civilians know how to teach firearms training, but one of the downsides about being a civilian and only ever a civilian is that it's really difficult to bring much practical experience to it, right? Because you can't pull from your time in Afghanistan, you can't pull from your time in the military. It doesn't mean you don't know what you're talking about, and it doesn't mean that somebody that was military or in law enforcement does, because most cops are not shooters and most soldiers are not shooters. So, but it does mean that the soldiers and the cops that are shooters and that have that practical experience as well as being shooters kind of get a little bit of a leg up on those things. And so, and they get a little bit more credibility in the class. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you guys, I shoot competition, right, IDPA, and I shoot several times a month. And one of the competitions I go to, I get my ass kicked, and I'm a master level shooter. I get my ass kicked, stomped by a shoe salesman and a computer programmer. Neither one of them ever military, neither one of them ever law enforcement. The shoe salesman inherited the business from his father. He's been that way for his entire life, right? And these guys stomp me. So it's not to say that they can't shoot, not to say that they can't teach. So don't take that to mean that I'm knocking on the guy for being, a civilian and never having law enforcement or military experience. But it does make me question, how much can this guy teach me? And so I got to do a little bit of research on it, which I would do with any instructor. And so I go to their YouTube channel and I just go start listening to them. And so I started listening to them for a few hours to see, is this somebody I want to spend some money on and go get some training with and go try out their class. And you don't have to listen to more than a couple of their videos before you realize they both absolutely know what they're talking about. They're very sharp. They're very capable instructors, and without a doubt, they are incredibly knowledgeable on firearms, on ballistics, on AR-15 platforms. What makes them run? I don't know if they're as knowledgeable on like AK platforms, but certainly on AR-15 platforms, they have a lot of weaponry knowledge. I was very impressed, and the one guy that's actually a civilian probably had more weaponry knowledge than the guy that was the JTAC. So keep that in mind. Now, it doesn't mean that he can instruct as good, doesn't mean that he can shoot as good. It just means that he probably had more knowledge on the weapons than the guy that was a JTAC, or even than myself. He was very, very sharp on it. So keep that in mind. one thing to keep in mind, guys, is that, again, like people like Bill Wilson, right? Bill Wilson was a jeweler. He wasn't a cop. He wasn't military. And he knows more about 1911s than most people that have alive will ever know. So it's not to say that they can't have the knowledge. But I wanted to give you guys kind of my bias going into it and what my thoughts were going into it. I ended up being very impressed. Now, the bad of the class, there was two bad things about this class that I didn't much care for. Most of the class, they ran it exceptionally well. They responded well with the weather. Right, we had some really shitty weather come in, and so they responded well. They said, "Hey, here we're gonna change this a little bit. We're gonna get back out of the pavilion. We're gonna run some lines and some different drills, and we're gonna run things a little bit more distance, right, at 50 yards instead of 25 yards." And so they responded really well to the weather. They worked together really well. They kind of caveated each other during the dialogue. It was a very good dance and marriage there. So very good in that sense of things. Very good in the drills that they run. Now, I don't agree with all the principles that they teach, and that's true for any class. It's a reason that we own our own school. If I found one that I agreed with everything, I'd probably try to get a job instead of be a competitor. So I don't agree with everything that they do, but everything that they do makes sense. Whether I agree with it or not is irrelevant, because I think that other methods are better. Everything that they did made sense. There was nothing out there that was like, oh my God, that is like a catastrophic fucking stupid error, and I can't believe you guys are teaching that. None of that junk, right? Everything was a very logical, like, hey, I don't agree with it. I understand how you got there, and I think that that's a great option. And opened my eyes up to some things that maybe I hadn't considered. Okay, so the two bad things about the class. So the first bad thing about the class, about the first hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, was spent on zeroing. And my thought on zeroing is this: when you come to a carbine class, your rifle should be zeroed. If you can't zero your rifle before class, you probably need to be in like an NRA level class rather than a carbine close quarter battle class. You need some more basic fundamental help. So the rifle should be zeroed before you come into a class like that. The first 30 minutes, 45 minutes of class should be spent confirming zero, right, and making sure and having your standard set up for zero. But everybody's going to be zeroed a little bit differently. Like some people are 25, some are 37, some are 50, some are 100, some are 200. Everybody's going to be zeroed a little bit differently. I like a 37-yard zero, and so everybody's going to be a little bit different. And there is, by the way, there is a debate about whether it's 37 or 36 yards, but to me, that's a moot point. 1 yard doesn't make enough difference on my zero for a close quarter rifle, but whatever. Anyways, so you need to understand your zero, and you need to go into it with that. So in my eyes, if I'm going to spend an hour and a half to 2 hours on zeroing, we should be actually probably under PowerPoint going through zero theory and going through the ballistic tables on things, rather than 2 hours like on the line literally zeroing, because some people struggled to zero. One person had a loose sight that they couldn't get zeroed well because the sight was loose, and so that was one of my critiques on the class. Like, hey, let's cut some of this time out by telling people they need to have a zeroed rifle, and we're going to zero beforehand. So for our classes and our carbine classes, what we tell students is, you better have a zeroed rifle before you come. We're going to spend 4 iterations of 5 shots. So you're going to spend a total of 20 rounds confirming your zero. And everybody's going to do those same 20 rounds, confirming their zero and confirming that they can shoot it. And if you're not confirming those 20 rounds, yeah, we may spend a little bit more time, but I'm not wasting an hour. You'll have to go take an NRA class and come back, right? You'll have to come back at a later date, and I'll bump you to the next class. It won't cost you anything, but we can't hold up the whole class because 1 or 2 guys can't zero. It's not fair to the other people that paid. And so that's one thing that we do a little bit different with our class. So you're going to get, in our classes, you're going to get 20 rounds. And that's kind of the extent of your zeroing time. And again, like I said, if I can get you in another iteration or 2, then we'll go forward with it. But I can't spend an hour with you on it. We've got to get other people shooting. So keep that in mind, that you should have your weapons confirmed and ready to go. Now, I brought a rifle that I was actually kind of getting a little bit broken in on this, because I had some new equipment on it. So I was actually working on getting the gun a little bit broken in while I was out there. So realize that hey, it's okay to break in some equipment out there. It's okay to put a new scope on, and once you've confirmed zero, and even come out there with a bore sight, I'm okay with that. But make sure that you're capable of getting it zeroed within about 20 to 25 rounds. And again, I think that you can cut out a lot of stuff. If you want to go over zero theory, we certainly can in class. but it's not time at the range. The other thing, number two, the other thing that I think could probably run a little bit better on their class was the talking between the instructors. And this is one of the downsides when you get two instructors, and it's something that my wife and I have to work on when we teach a lot of our women's classes, because she'll assist me in the women's classes, and when we do those classes, we have to come to an agreement like, hey, you need to teach this section, I'll teach this section. We're not doing, I'm teaching this section, and then she's going to caveat on everything, because then it's just talking people to death. And if people are antsy to get to the line and start shooting, they'll stop listening. And that's one of the problems that you run into in classes like this. If when you have two instructors, they wanted to caveat on top of each other quite a bit, and that's okay to a certain extent, but you really need to it needs to be very concise and to the point. And what we're looking for as kind of a ratio of talking to shooting time on like a 6-hour course, right? We run most of our classes. This was an 8-hour course, but we run most of our classes at 6 hours. And because of it's not that it's inefficient, it's that I give people a chance beforehand and after to ask questions, but also 6 hours of real intense training is about all most people can handle. And so because we shoot so much more in those 6 hours, I'm going through about the same round count, the same amount of drills that they're doing in an 8-hour time frame, 8 hours and working through lunch actually. So we were there. It was a long day. Anyways, so you're really looking for a ratio of talking to shooting of about 25 to 33%, right? So a quarter to a third. I want a quarter to a third of that class to be me talking, right? And that's me talking between drills. That's me explaining things. That's us. Hey, this is our, our weapon hold. This is our prone. This is our kneeling, et cetera, et cetera. And what ends up happening is they would kind of play off of each other, and they would go into too many different examples on things. And so because of that, we ended up spending probably 40 to 50% in the talking stage of the class between drills and discussing things. And it was making, you could see people like getting antsy to kind of get out to the line. Like, we're like, hey, all right, we're ready. We want to go, you told us we want to get out to the line and shoot this fucking thing. So that's one of the issues that you run in with two instructors. And then some instructors really need to spend some time kind of editing out their language, right? It's like writing a book. You write your rough draft, where your rough draft should be, let's say it's 100,000 words and you want like a 70,000 word book. You got to learn to edit some things out. It's kind of the same thing. You got to edit some vocabulary out and some lines out that like, hey, they've got the point here. There's no sense in me continuing the discussion here. They've already understood what I want them to do. Right here is exactly where I want them going to the line and trying it. Okay, so those are my two critiques for the class. A little bit less talking, and not much. It's not like they were babbling the whole time, and like it's not what I'm saying. But a little bit less talking and a little bit more focused on the zero side of things, so that we can actually get to the fundamentals of the class. Right. So that's really what I want to see when I take a class. I want to see like, hey, let's get at it. Let's put some hard rounds down range. Let's hit hard, hit first, hit fast. And right, that's our slogan here, and that's really what I want to see when I go to a training class. And that's why I look at training classes, like, hey, if it's an 8-hour class, how much of that is talking and stuff like that? Safety stuff, I got it. You have to do safety stuff. And so every class you do, you're always gonna have 30 minutes at the beginning. That's all safety BS, because some people are stupid. And so I understand that aspect of it, and so I'm not complaining about that one at all. Every class needs to have that, but again, I'm not complaining. Again, I give this class a very solid 4.5 stars out of 5, right? It was a really, really good class. I'm kind of nitpicking now and giving some kind of higher critiques, like, I think you guys can do better at this. And it's the same thing that we do here. We ask for AARs. My wife and I, we look at the classes. We look at the class with other instructors, like, hey, what can we do better? What are we doing bad? And how do we fine tune these a little bit? And so that's really what I want this to be, is a good fine tuning for them. So guys, thanks so much for watching. Like I said, if you haven't already done so, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to go catch Barrel and Hatchet and go to some of their training, I'll put a link to their website down in the description and probably tag them in the channel and all that crap, so y'all can see it. But they did a phenomenal job of some training. So get down there, get some carbine training. Get up here, get some carbine training. We actually have carbine. We're building a curriculum now, so we will have carbine classes here at the range probably this fall is when we'll have that ready for you. So thanks again for watching, guys. I really appreciate it.